since you arrived in 2018, they've taken massive strides each year, going from 6-10, then 10-6, and last year 13-3. So obviously that work each season starts in the offseason, specifically in OTAs. So how, in your opinion, has the team approach to OTAs changed at all over the last few years? And what's the general feeling like entering OTAs this year?
I think that, the answer would probably be yes. The overall team mindset, I guess, towards the offseason has probably changed a little bit as the entire league and really the whole world, football community's stance has probably shifted a little bit. 2020 was a year with crazy obstacles for numerous reasons. The pandemic was real, and the fact that we weren't healthy, it was during the pandemic, we weren't able to have an off season. There was a lot of questions and concern with what might happen and how a season would look like. And, some of the statistics that ended up coming out from this showed that, that we were able to have a pretty good season. We were able to have some high scoring games. We were able to have solid defense, low missed tackles, low holding calls, things like that. And so that kind of puts some questions around what the offseason looks like. But I think the most important things that an offseason should be is about bringing the team together, finding your identity as a team and learning the playbook and learning the philosophy of the Buffalo Bills. What does it mean to be a Buffalo Bill? And so I think that with those as our two main goals for the offseason, there's a team-wide approach. That those are two things that we definitely want to accomplish in our time back.
And then for you personally, obviously you're a vet now entering year 4. How do you approach your fourth offseason or fourth offseason versus your first offseason?
Well, believe it or not, you age kind of so fast, your body can only take so much training. Also, since the injuries, you have to be more corrective on your body versus constantly grinding. But there's a time and place for anything. And so my first year, it was kind of vetting all these other players. What worked for you? What worked for you? What worked for you? And so kind of messing with that through these off seasons, I kind of found what works for me. And in the month or so that I do my 2-a-days, 5 hours in the weight room and grinding. And then where do I taper off from the strength stuff and shift more towards on-field drills of defensive line play, and where do I want my weight to be at what part in the off season? And so those are just things you learn and you pick up and try to find something new each off season. Like Pilates was a big thing that I picked up this off season, doing some more core type things. The off season before, I did a lot of boxing for some cardio and things like that. So you just, kind of, it's like a motor, and you just kind of fine tune the motor each year and figure out what works best for each player.
Right. So going off that a little bit, 2019, you tear your ACL, miss most of the year. Last year, come back, first full year back. Sean McDermott talked last week, said you did a heck of a job last year, but also brought up the fact that a lot of people don't realize just the hardships that players face in their first full year back from an injury like that. So what were some of the hardships that you had to overcome? I mean, COVID obviously being one of them, but then, just in general, returning from an injury like that.
Yeah. I mean, many, and just as many physically as mentally. It's very frustrating to try to do everything the right way, right? Train the right way, practice hard, do everything you can, and your body still not answer to what you believe it can do. So there was definitely some situations, especially earlier on in the season. And you can only train your body so much, right? Different than a wide receiver or a defensive back. My body was fine for the force that it would take from itself, right? If I were to run up and jump on my leg, I felt comfortable that my knee was healthy enough to sustain that. But in the trenches, I've got to play a double team from two people weighing 330 pounds and me planting on my leg. There's so much more force than just I could ever replicate through training. And so that's why it's a little bit different for linemen coming back versus a skilled position. There's just so much more force when you calculate it and think about it. And so just getting into some of those positions and, watching the film through some of the first games, I was on the ground a lot, or I'd be in a position where, I probably should plant, but instead I took a couple steps, kind of stuttered my feet instead of just plant and go. And so that took a while to get comfortable in and to get myself in situations that I built up that trust in myself and my trust in the knees. And, also got a little bit of time off. Once the injury happened, had surgery, the next day I'm in physical therapy, right? Then that entire off season through COVID, I stuck around until they kicked me out, but it was, working out 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, just training in the off season every day, and then straight to training camp, and then straight to the season. And I didn't have a day off. A lot of people, when they're coming back from injuries, they might take a day or so off in training camp or have a light and load. I didn't. I was full through the whole time. And so during the middle, I was inactive for a few games and got some rest. And when I came back, I felt like I was playing a lot better as I got some rest, also started to trust myself. And it was just further along than when the actual injury happened. And so, I thought I grew a lot as the season progressed.
Oh, for sure. And you're feeling 100% now? Ready to go?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel really good.
That's great. So, and then you said earlier that when you were recovering, you stayed as long as you could until they kicked you out. And then Sean McDermott last week, again, talked about how you were at the facility most of the offseason this year, helping to lead this football team. So just, again, just you're not a veteran, but you're in your fourth year now. So like, how has your role grown on this team, not only on the field, but also in the locker room as a leader?
Well, with how fast the turnover is in the NFL, I'm only on year 4, but out of all the defensive linemen that are here, there's a lot of us here. Myself and Mike Love are the most veteran Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Going on our 4th season, everybody else this is their first year with the Bills, the 2nd year at the Bills, 3rd year with the Bills. And it's Mike Love and I who are on our 4th years with the Bills in our room. So we're the leaders who've been in the system for a longer time, should have mastered the playbook, those type of things. So there's, kind of 2 types of leadership. One is the positional leadership. And that's like your middle linebacker is going to be a leader. Your starting quarterback is going to be a leader. And your 10-year vet is going to be a leader because of the position they're in. And then there's personal leadership. And that's the leadership that you gain respect. When players walk by after practice and they see Tre'Davious White doing extra reps and doing his extra work, he gets a little bit of leadership from that. And so in the same aspect, now that I've been here for 3 years, going on 4 years, those players who see the way that I am as a player, the way how serious I take my craft, the way I am in the film room, staying late, first car there in the morning, last car to leave, those type of things, built up a lot of personal power as well. And so as we really build this thing to reach those, the goals that are out in front of us of not only getting to the game that we got to last year, but making it to the next one, everyone has to step up and lead in some capacity.
Going to more football related stuff now, like on field. So against the run last year, statistically speaking, Buffalo finished 16th. So right in the middle of the road. Obviously, there's some obvious explanations for that with Shaq leaving, Jordan Phillips leaving, Star opting out, and then new additions having to learn through like COVID protocols and stuff. But just in general, how do you see the team bouncing back? Not even bouncing back, but improving against the run this year?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset shift for us. It's a really hard thing to develop at this point, right? We're not in pads and going
Right.
11 on 11 full, but it's something that's on everyone's radar. We know that we want to be better in the run, and not only just because we want to be better in the run, but that puts us into 3rd and longs and 2nd and longs where we can really take the football away and score on defense. And so, being able to get to a 2nd and 9 versus a 2nd and 4 is huge for us. And so it's on all of our radar. It's something that I took, I took very personally this offseason as I started training and thinking about areas in my game that I wanted to grow on and try to master. And so, and I think a lot of people did that themselves too, just personally don't like that. That's where we sat. And so I think we all have goals that we want to accomplish in the run game, which again, will not only just make us a better defense, but will help us and put us in those better situations.
And how big do you think of an addition will Star be? How big of a role will he play in that coming back this year?
Yeah, it's going to be awesome to have Star back. We talk about a guy who's been in the system for a long, long time, being there in Carolina and coming over here. He already has worked with Coach Washington, as Coach Washington, our defensive line coach, was with him in Carolina. And so it's going to be great to have him back and, healthy after getting a full year off, getting to really recover after you play so many years in the NFL. Just wear and tear can probably make you feel a little tired and things like that. But, last I talked to him, he feels great, and we're excited to have a big addition like him back.
So this question's from Eric, so I will read it verbatim so I don't mess up for him. How important is it for the linebackers to have a defensive line who recognize run concepts and execute gap exchanges, or get helmet in their gap so that linebackers can play off it and make plays?
Yeah, in our defense, it's really important. I'm sure anytime you listen to coaches talk or players talk, you hear gap integrity all the time. Yep. And that was a big thing when you look at the run game. It's not like guys are getting pancaked, blown way off the ball. It's that there's misfits. And if a player reads a gap wrong and there's an explosive, that brings the yards up for carry, right? And so the gap integrity is extremely important because we tell our linebackers to play downhill. And so if they're coming down and they think this is their gap and a defensive lineman's in it, they don't have enough time to correct and try to make that right. So there's a big emphasis on defensive linemen to ensure that they're in their gap. We don't gap exchange too much. And so really, you're almost gap aligned almost every time, that's your responsibility. And so the hardest thing is just having the mindset and awareness to know, okay, is this a run situation or a pass situation? Because you don't want to be playing for the run because, hey, we need to be the best run defense we can. And now all of our D linemen are sitting running down the middle of guys because we want to be good in the run. So there's definitely a balance.
Right. So just two here to wrap up. So the Bills, obviously, first two picks in the draft this year, back-to-back DNs with Craig Rousseau, Carlos Basham. What have you seen from them through this early part of OTAs? And they both obviously have positional versatility. So what kind of value does that add to a defensive line? Because now there's a bunch of defensive ends who can kick inside if needed in certain situations.
Yeah, well, I would say the very first thing that I would say about both of them is that they want to be good. They have a fantastic mindset. They both want to come to work. They both want to learn. And they want to be the best football players they can be to help the Buffalo Bills. And that is amazing to see a rookie come in with that mindset versus a guy who comes in who thinks he has it all figured out because he was the man at his college. And so to have two guys coming in, that's not something that a vet like myself has to try to monitor. They want to know what they can do more. They want to know, hey, Harrison, you're staying after practice. What are you doing? Can I hop in with you? And then, talking about their actual skill set, you talk about Gregory's length, when he learns how to use that, when we put pads on him, we can, start being a little more aggressive. He can get to a quarterback like a step, he's just such a long body. You got to affect the quarterback any way you can. That's by his hands, his eyes, or his feet. You're not going to get home every time you see how fast his quarterbacks throw the ball, but with just his length and his ability to put an arm up, batted balls, just being in vision. And then, Carlos, he's been coming along fantastic. They picked up the playbook. They've blown me out of the water with how well they've picked up the playbook. And so I'm very excited for their growth and pumped to have them in our room.
And then to reiterate the positional versatility that they have, just how valuable is that, knowing that you have guys on that line that you have something to match up with every scenario, I guess, or you have certain packages that you can deploy.
Yeah, it's really nice. And like you said, as we start to film study, if there's certain matchups that we like, we watch film and there's a body like a Carlos or a Boogie, one of those guys inside a Gregory. If there's other teams that are showing that those guys are beating guards or lining up over centers and winning, we're obviously going to take that in consideration. And it works vice versa too. If they call a call and whoever's out on the field has to execute that call. So if we're in a Cub look, if we go to an Okie look, if we're in an overlook, we have different things. They're not just going to say, hey, what players are on the field? Can we call this? Every player needs to be able to line up as a 3 technique, a 9 technique, a 6 technique, a 1. And so for them to be able to come in, learn the playbook at those different positions, and be able to sub in, you never know where the injury bug hits, knock on wood. but you never know where a guy might have to come in and help a team win a Super Bowl. You don't know where that comes into play. So it's very great to have the versatility.
And last one here, transitioning to a second-year player. There's an offseason darling every year, and this year it looks like it's going to be AJ Epenesa. But just besides physical appearance, because that's what everyone's really, really going to town on with him. What's different about him this year?
Well, the across the NFL, I think that we're going to see a big jump in rookies from the 2020 class because they didn't have an off season. Right. No, I mean, that hasn't happened in how long? Since the lockout 11 years ago or whatever. So those guys, I think, are all going to make a big jump. It's same with all of our guys. AJ's obviously getting some credit in the media and things like that, but his whole class is looking fantastic. But AJ is also a guy who wants to be good. He's had a year in the system now. When you come into training camp and never even talk to a teammate or know anything, he shows up first day and is trying to get a tour of where the locker room is and where the weight room is, versus now he has his full rhythm. He can focus on what does AJ Epenesa have to do to be the best defensive end he can be. And so his growth is great, and it's super exciting to see how he looks. And I bet y'all be very excited to see when you can come to training camp and check him out.